back. Tasty Crypto Show. I'm Ryan Grace. With me today, Mad Mike.
How you doing, Ryan?
I can't complain.
Can't complain.
No, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
We're in the midst of a rally.
If you're a crypto guy, how can you not be doing well this week? It's just every day is better than the last.
For now, Mike, we know what the other side of that looks like, I suppose.
We do, but I think we're in it for a while. And as we were talking about this morning, I think this is more of a generational asset class than anything else. I think we're going to see the ups and downs, volatility for the next 30, 40 years, and then I think it's going to start to level out.
You have a 40-year time horizon.
I have a 40-year time horizon.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to make some money this week. So
buy Bitcoin, sit on it.
We'll see what
Sell
happens.
it next week.
We will jump into market action here at the end of the show if we have time, but previously we've been running out of time. So I want to jump right into the show today. We have a fun topic that we're going to tackle. This is something I've been looking at quite a bit, and I know you've had quite a bit of interest in as well. Let's talk about the relationship between crypto and AI.
Yeah, let's talk about AI first.
Okay.
Briefly, let's touch on AI. What are your thoughts on AI? What are your thoughts on these crazy stocks like Nvidia, quadrupling in value almost overnight? Like, what do you think we're overvalued as far as these different AI assets?
I think things have become a little stretched, maybe in the short term. I think it's a valid investment thesis. Obviously, there's something there. When you look at NVIDIA's most recent earnings report, their guidance was very, very positive. So I think it's real in that sense. Has it gotten a little bit ahead of itself? Maybe. But that's how I think about it. I don't think, if I look at AI, I don't think it's an existential risk to humanity, if that's what you're looking for. Do I think that more and more businesses are going to employ this technology? Yes. I think many jobs are going to be created as a result of it. I don't think it's necessarily going to replace humans. I think productivity will increase. So I think there's a real, obviously, investment thesis there. But in terms of the price action, I don't know. I mean, things maybe are a little stretched. We could argue that about some of what we're seeing in crypto too.
I think it's tough for people to value AI today because we don't understand what it's capable of. When I think about like revolutionary technologies like AI, I could think about Gutenberg and the printing press. I don't think he would have fathomed that would have led to the Age of Reason or the Age of Enlightenment, but it did. And that was the instrumental technology that propelled the world forward. And I see as AI as that new technology that it's either the beginning of the beginning or the beginning of the end for humanity, I think. And there's so many different ways, and it's so exciting what the future has in store for us.
You're in the pro AI camp.
I know I'm not. I don't know. You can't know the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, again, I like to think way out, so I don't know what's going to happen in 20 years from now, but I do think it's here to stay. And I think when we look at these valuations of these participants in the space, I think they're undervalued.
Okay, so
because of the potential. Okay,
so it's real and it warrants current valuations in your opinion. If we look absolutely. At like NVIDIA as the poster child for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, 6 months ago, everybody was saying NVIDIA is overvalued. It's doubled in price in the last 6 months. So and the same thing might happen 6 months to come. So,
well, when you look at the crypto space, you're seeing something similar in terms of performance. In some cases, we'll look at this towards the end, but you have outperformance. If you look at some of these tokens that are AI related, and in some cases in name only, but you look at the performance there versus NVIDIA, and clearly that enthusiasm for AI has spilled into the crypto space.
Sure.
When I first saw this, and if we go back the last couple of months where we really saw these tokens take off, crypto and AI at that point, for me, I'm kind of thinking, okay, this is a marketing ploy.
That's what I thought. Unfortunately, that's why I didn't buy these tokens.
Right. This is a meme in some ways. Of course, you like crypto, you like AI. Let's put them together.
Put ChatGPT coin in the name, and it'll go up 1,000%.
Which we've seen before, right? You've seen that period of time, if we go back a few years, where blockchain this, blockchain that, it's the future, buy it now, it's only going to go up. Mm-hmm. And that works for a while. You can make a lot of money in those sorts of trades. But I was thinking that's the same thing with crypto and AI. What you're going to walk us through here today is that this is a bit more tangible, right?
Yeah.
This is real.
It is real. Previous applications or use cases for blockchain, we have some supply chain from IBM. I'm sure you heard about their projects. There's been some major projects, but they pretty much all fizzled out. Blockchain is like a red hot cinder. sitting under kindling, right? It needs something to take off. It needs some oxygen to blow on it to spread to the real world. And I think that oxygen could very well be AI. And that's why I'm very excited about this synergy of the two technologies.
Well, let's jump into it then, because
Yeah.
we can break this down in two parts, and we'll talk about the use cases. We'll look at some of the tokens that are related to these use cases that we're going to talk about. But I think you can bucket it, or you can look at it from two different angles. One is blockchain that facilitates AI, supports AI. Think of it almost as infrastructure. And then the other side of this, you have AI for blockchain.
Right.
How does the AI concept or deploying AI on a blockchain, how does it make the blockchain better versus how does a blockchain network possibly support the development of AI?
Yeah, so we're gonna spend most of our time talking about how blockchain can make AI more efficient and more trustworthy and more open and more decentralized. And there's 3 protocols specifically we're going to talk about today that do every single one of those things.
Okay. Well, let's start there. When we talk about blockchain for AI, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Or what, in your opinion, do people need to know? What is this really about when we're saying the relationship or the intersection between crypto and AI? What is that actually?
It's about creating efficiency. It's about creating trustworthiness. It's about creating a route to the truth, which is a route to the algorithm to figure out why AI is producing the results they are producing. If I ask ChatGPT something, it's very hard to figure out where they come up with that information from. So I can't validate it. So there's a lot of problems with AI, and everybody's aware of those problems. And blockchain addresses a good portion of them. And Ryan, I was reading the other day that every time you send a prompt to ChatGPT, it costs OpenAI 36 cents.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to talk about today is computing power, which AI requires an astronomical amount of computing power. And to compete in the space in the centralized world, it's very difficult. But in the decentralized world, you can actually sell your computing power, and you can get paid for doing so by protocols.
Yeah, because when I think about it today, there's probably other companies out there, but the majority of them are globally, I guess what you would call Western big tech companies, right?
Yeah.
I'm not aware off the top of my head of any kind of big Chinese companies that are known in the space specifically for AI. I'm sure that everybody's working on this. But what comes to mind is ChatGPT, OpenAI, Microsoft. We've seen Google's, I guess, attempt at AI here recently. So you see a lot of the big tech companies in the U.S. that are actively, investing in this space, building in this space. But point being, it's a handful of companies, and there's only really a few that have the resources, have the capital, have the infrastructure to be able to train these models.
Sure.
Just given everything that's involved. So when you think about blockchain, then from an infrastructure perspective, I suppose to use that term, this is really about the resources that go into these models. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big part of it.
And if you have, I guess, an alternative to your siloed, kind of call it black box models, or how those things are developed from companies like Google or Microsoft, which I think there's also an argument now around should they have this much control to shape the future of this technology. The alternative there is to use a decentralized infrastructure or to use kind of distributed computing power across the network. And you look at Bitcoin, it's one of, I believe, the most powerful kind of computing networks that exist, right? When you think about it in aggregate. So that's the starting point then. If you're trying to answer the question around what is this even related to, it's actually how this is powered. Is that right?
Yeah, it's what kind of goes on behind the scenes. And on top of the infrastructure problem, there's also the problems in what I was talking about, which they call explainability. And legitimacy of data, and being able to prove that your answers are indeed valid because you know the data set that the information is coming from.
So it gets really to transparency in that sense too, which I guess is what we have up here on the slide. Okay, so let's dig into that then. Blockchain for AI is related to distributing computer power first and foremost is probably how I would think about it. Data plays a huge role, whether it's data storage, its availability, it's the security of that data. There's the monetization component to it as well. And then there's also the transparency with this, which I think, is another reason why decentralized approach a blockchain-based approach in some ways maybe is attractive to people when you look at this over a long period of time.
Yeah, these are the three pillars. Of course, there's probably a dozen other use cases or fits we could talk about, but
Sure.
these are the big three that we're going to talk about today.
Well, talk to me, please, about distributed computing power. I think we have a couple examples here of some of the existing protocols or networks that are out there trying to solve some of these problems. Not everything under the sun, but let's start with distributed computing power.
So AI requires massive computing power, as we were just talking about. And to scale, you need to be a pretty large centralized company with access to a massive amount of computing power. And that's difficult to do unless
Sure.
you're able to outsource it and do it in a decentralized manner. And I think, Ryan, the first protocol that we're going to look at is the Golem. Is that how you say that?
Your guess is
Golem?
as good as
Golem.
mine
All right,
with
we're
some
gonna
of
call
these
it-
things. I butcher the names. I'm like Golem.
Golem.
Yeah.
All right, Golem. We'll call it Golem.
Sure.
The G word. So this is a protocol that you can connect your ERC20 wallet to. It's an Ethereum protocol. And there's 5 steps. So you set up, you have to have a wallet, you install this software, you link your wallet and decide how much computing power you want to share.
Okay.
And you keep it running in the background, and then you receive tokens in the form of their native cryptocurrency, which we can see on the bottom there is payment. So you don't have to do anything. They just want your computing power. Not like a lot of, how a lot of other blockchains operate. But this is very much geared towards AI.
Okay. And presumably then that compute power is used by developers to train models. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they can use it for whatever they want. There's, AI is expensive and it requires a lot of computing power to operate. So this can be used for several different use cases. I'm not sure the specific ones with this network, but it works for everybody except the big boys in the space.
Well, another one that comes to mind around this too, and I don't know if it's directly related. I think given your research in this space, you would know more than I do. But BitTensor or BitTensor, again, we don't know how to pronounce anything, right? But BitTensor is another one where they take that step of first talking about here is the distributed compute power. Imagine if you could harness the blockchain, or excuse me, the Bitcoin blockchain, in order to train these models. And starting from there, this seems like it's somewhat related, but this is really about, I have this excess capacity in some sense and I want to monetize it. And maybe the network isn't as robust as it will be if it does develop, but that's the concept at play, right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So the ticker symbol there is GLM for the Golem network, and you can see some details about it as well, and you'll kind of see the consistent theme is all of this stuff is up quite a bit.
They just go up.
These are very small market cap tokens. When we look at something that's 382 million in market cap, it's going to move around a lot, to say the least. So that's where we're starting with distributed computing power. What about data storage and accessibility? Because when I think about decentralized storage, and I don't know if it's directly involved here, but the first token that comes to mind, or first project protocol that comes to mind, is Filecoin.
Okay.
Decentralized storage in that sense. How do you think about data storage, accessibility? How do you look at this from the AI perspective?
Well, in the decentralized world, when we're talking decentralized AI, they don't have the data that Facebook has, that all these different Web 2 applications have. They don't know their user. They simply don't have that information. So how do you get that information on chain? And we're going to talk about a protocol shortly that figures that out. But that's a big problem right now. And you just can't manifest data. You just can't create it from anywhere. You have to get it from the user. If I want to track you and see what you're doing, I have to have cookies or whatever on your computer to track you, which doesn't really exist, or it didn't exist until these protocols came out. So what we're going to talk about next is a protocol that allows people to share their data.
Okay.
And why would you share your data? Because you're going to get paid for it. So you're getting monetized. What you're doing already today, you're not getting paid whenever you surf on Google. Right?
Sure.
I think you probably use the Brave browser.
At
don't you?
times.
Yeah.
Cover my tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid, but that's a lot of money, I'd like to know how much I'm worth to all the different social media companies in a year. Like, there's a dollar value on my head. We don't know it. They know it. But some of these protocols, we're going to get into the Ocean protocol in the next slide. Oh, you already have it up there.
Right there ahead of you.
Yeah.
But to that point, though, when you think about kind of flipping this thing on its head, right? And you talk about monetization. we have this existing, call it Web 2 model. You have these rent-seeking entities. The economic value or the business model of the internet then is effectively advertising. And we're cool with that because you have a great user experience on the other side of it, right? You go and you use Google or use Instagram, whatever it might be. Presumably you don't have an issue. You're aware that maybe it's not private in that sense. You're being tracked in some cases. You're willing to give up that privacy for the experience. What you're describing, it sounds like, and this is what kind of blockchain lends itself to, is you have an alternative to this system where maybe you're paid to view an ad, or you're paid micropayments in cryptocurrency on a blockchain network.
Or you're paid to be tracked, your online activity. Sure.
Okay. This is maybe similar then in that sense, where here is a protocol that you could participate within, and you can actually monetize your data, and that data is then being used to train AI models. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because again, these models need that data, and where else are they going to get it from? They're not a centralized company. They have to get it directly from the users, just like everybody in Web 2 does.
Yeah, that's interesting because as you have more and more unique or defined specific use cases, different models that you want to build that are experts in name the topic, but it's somewhat defined. Sure. It's not just ask me anything. It's a specialized model in that sense. There will, I would imagine, become more of a marketplace for data to train those specialized models, or it becomes more tactical in a sense, and it seems like this can lend itself to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's another one though that, I don't honestly know how to think about some of these numbers at times. They're small cap stocks, micro cap stocks, market cap here of 473 million. So small cap stock, it's going to be very, very volatile, but aligned with what we've seen in NVIDIA, if this is up quite a bit.
And I think the best play here, because you never know what new version of protocol is going to come out with, is to really diversify. And if you want to be involved in the AI crypto space, don't put it all into one. Spread it out over the 10 most promising ones, and hope one hits. Right. Right.
Take the VC approach, I suppose. And if anybody wants to shill some AI projects, we do have the chat open here on YouTube. We are live, so pop it in the chat, and it's nice to see everybody in here as well. So, Golem, Ocean, let's talk about transparency.
All right, so we're going to talk about transparency and explainability. So current AI systems they're closed circuits. It introduces what's called the black box dilemma.
Okay.
We don't know what's inside these boxes, nor do we know if we can trust it because we don't have access to it. So there is a protocol that we're going to talk about next called Singularity.net. And what this protocol does is it allows us to track and record the decision-making processes of different AI systems. So we can trace an algorithm back to its roots. So if I were to ask, an LLM, ChatGPT something, I could see definitively where it's coming from, where that information is coming from. And the system and the blockchain, the protocol can already prove whether or not that is valid because other people through a different layer will have, determined that. So I know the information is valid and I can track it to its source, which again, centralized companies will never offer. They're not going to put their algorithms up on the table for people to dive into, and it's very private stuff, but nothing is private.
It wouldn't be good for business in that sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, when I look at these, I need some help in how to think about this because I get that there are, well, let's say it's early, but you have tangible use cases here. We start with this idea of distributed compute power. There's a data component. There's a transparency element to this as well that's attractive for a variety of reasons. They're all up. Most of this stuff is very positively correlated, and it's also correlated with just crypto in general, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to see that this stuff trades in line with Bitcoin in terms of its correlation. When you look at this, is there a use case? Is there a project that you would consider over, the others? This is up 153% in the last month. Going back to Ocean, it's up 82%. Clearly, they're not the same thing. This has a market cap twice the others. We're going to talk about a couple more here in a second that have market caps in the low, single-digit billions. What is attractive to you when you try to evaluate some of what's happening in AI and crypto? How do you think?
I mean, the only thing I really have is their adaptability, and the market cap and their services. I just take those in. I try to find the ones that are undervalued relative to the other protocols in that space, and those are the ones that I invest in.
Okay.
But it's the same with all of crypto though. It's very difficult to value this stuff. There is value there, but what is that value? It's very like traditional investing. We have earnings reports and all these other things we can dive through revenue, but that just doesn't exist for these protocols yet. So
and I think there's the argument too around not everyone's going to make it. We see that with any company, right? To think that all the companies that exist today are going to exist in 5 years or be relevant, I think is a mistake. I would challenge everyone to do your own research, as we say here, right? These are not recommendations to go out and buy these, more so just examples of what's happening in the space. I will point out, focus on the outstanding supply versus what the total supply could be if all the tokens are unlocked. You want to understand, what is driving that market cap of $1 billion, and how does that change if all of a sudden all the tokens that could be issued or that have been issued are available in the open market. So you can pay attention to that through some of the tools that we've pointed out before, whether it's CoinMarketCap, you can head over to Token Terminal, to DeFi Llama. So some of those tools that we look at, and that might give you a better sense too of, all right, how many people hold these tokens? Or, are there users in the sense that there's users? Some more of that information is available. So I think, again, do your own research around this. But let's just throw up, to give everybody a sense of kind of the performance here, what we're talking about. I have no idea. Do they go up another 100%, or do they pull back? I suppose anything is possible in crypto. That's what makes it fun. But we've got a number of the protocols or the projects that we've looked at here, we've discussed in the show: Singularity, Ocean, Golem, and then BitTensor, Render. And for fun, I threw NVIDIA up there as well. So NVIDIA has a $1.9 trillion market cap. Clearly, it's a real company. Not to say that these aren't real companies, but we know NVIDIA is much more than just AI. That's been the recent theme here and what's maybe driving some of its growth, obviously. But when you look at the performance, of these tokens, they've certainly outperformed NVIDIA, and Bitcoin as well has outperformed. So again, you get back to that positive correlation there. I think it is interesting to look at this.
Yeah, and I mean, these are only 3 months. If you were to make that a year, you'd need more space in the line to type out all the numbers, because I mean, they're just up incredibly.
Yeah, a good chunk of the performance has come for some of these in the last month. Right, so there's an argument that this is just a really high vol kind of macro trade, crypto macro in that sense, where not sure that these would all be up this much if, say, Bitcoin wasn't also up 40% in the last month. But I do think, when you dig into this, there is something there.
Yeah, I think they started to take off November. That's where we saw the real gains, and then we kind of cooled off for a few months, and then over the last month or two, they've really shot back up there.
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting stuff to me. Like I said, we spent a little bit of time on this. I know you've done the work here. I initially, like most people, thought, okay, AI and crypto, sure. What else are you trying to sell me? But when you do look at this, there's some very interesting and compelling projects, real use cases. I think it's very early. And my takeaway around this sort of volatility from a trading perspective is that when something goes up 200% in a month, it can surely go down 50+% as well. It doesn't mean that it won't go back up, but that's the sort of volatility that you've got to be able to stomach, and to some extent, you've got to be able to time that market if you're going to trade these successfully, and that's obviously the art of it. Keeping with the price theme, what do you think, Mike? We've got a minute left. Bitcoin flirting with new all-time highs. Ethereum still a ways away from its all-time high. Where do we go from here? What are your last thoughts?
I mean, the only thing I would buy right now is Bitcoin, just because I can't.
You wouldn't buy these AI tokens?
Not at these levels. I'm going to buy them all once they hit, once they go down to that 50% range you were just talking about.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm looking at BitTensor.
If they ever go down again.
In the last 6 months, BitTensor was up 920%. Render was up 451%. It's just crazy. So
those
I mean,
are monster moves.
I know what Bitcoin can do, and the others will likely follow Bitcoin, but I'm just Bitcoin right now.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick look at price and expected moves based on the volatility. So volatility has picked up quite a bit here. I think intraday we were closer to 70% when I look at Bitcoin 30-day implied vol. The IV ranks are there. So we're trading at the higher end of the range. It doesn't mean that we can't continue to move higher in volatility terms. But what do you expect at a $60,000 spot price? I think we're actually at 61 right now. But 60,000, 65% vol, you're looking for around a $5,000 move. If you see those things, I would argue those things will happen. Those are the sorts of moves that, again, you should expect. It's not out of the ordinary. I think this could easily trade to 65 to 70. Let's see if we test that.
Maybe tomorrow morning it'll be there.
At this pace, that's kind of been the move. I think it's a little overbought, a little extended when you look at a number of different indicators. But just to put perspective around it, you're looking at about a $5,000 weekly move. That said, up until this point, most of the price action that we've seen has been well outside of what those expected moves were when we ran these calculations. If you go back, this has ticked up quite a bit. Ethereum, the same thing. You're looking at about a 10% move relative to the underlying price. So $300 against a spot price of $33.25. So we'll see whether this volatility continues to expand. But that's what I think everybody should be getting used to. Is we had said this at the very beginning. The volatility is likely to come back. I think if anything has changed in crypto, it's that we're getting back to those levels where it was fun. It's fun again,
Yeah.
Right? All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show. If you're interested in following us, and shout out to everybody that's joined us live on YouTube on the Tasty Live channel and has joined the chat. We will be reposting this video if you missed any of it on our own Tasty Crypto YouTube channel. So hop over there and give us a subscribe. Also check out our Learn Center if you're interested in kind of digging deeper, taking a dive into DeFi, into what's happening in this space. We got a lot of great content out there. Follow us on Twitter as well. And before we wrap up, if you don't have it already, make sure to check out the Tasty Crypto app. It's a self-custody wallet. And the way that I think about it is it just gives you access or opens the door to more opportunities on chain. There's a lot that we're going to be talking about throughout this show. Do that a little bit with Frank, jumping into the weeds in DeFi. You can do that here with the gateway, which is the Tasty Crypto app.
Sure. And you can only buy a lot of these coins with the wallet and a lot of the other coins we're going to be talking about. So download it, have it ready. It's free. It'll take you 1 minute to do it.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. We'll be back next Monday with Frank Caberna on the Tasty Crypto Show. Until then, I'm Ryan Grace.
I'm Mad Mike.
Thanks for watching.